The moment you stayed silent, everything changed. She was waiting for your words, expecting you to explain, to fill the space, to make things clear in a way that would calm her mind. But you didn't say anything, and now her thoughts are running in every direction, trying to make sense of what you chose not to say. That silence you held carried more meaning than any explanation ever could. If this speaks to you, subscribe now because what we are about to explore will change how you see yourself, how you carry yourself, and how you move in the world from this moment forward. Stay with me, this matters. There are two types of men. One talks too much. He explains everything he does. He justifies every decision. He defends every action as if he is constantly on trial. And slowly, without even realizing it, he stops being a man who lives with certainty and becomes someone who is always trying to prove himself, always trying to be understood, always trying to be accepted. And in that process, he loses something essential. Then there is another man. He moves quietly. He makes decisions without announcing them. He holds his ground without needing to explain why he stands where he stands. That is the man we are talking about today. Not the loud one, not the one chasing approval, the one who understands that silence is not emptiness. Silence is presence, deep, grounded, unshakable presence. She expected you to explain. She waited, she asked. Maybe once, maybe twice, maybe more. And you said nothing, not from cruelty, not from coldness, not because you didn't care, but because something deeper inside you refused to move. A place that knows its own value, a place that knows its own ground, a place that does not need external validation to feel valid. That silence came from identity, and identity is everything. Most men do not truly know who they are. They know who they are supposed to be. They know the version others prefer, the version that explains, the version that apologizes, the version that adjusts and shrinks itself just to keep the peace. But that is not identity, that is performance. And performance is exhausting. It drains you slowly, day after day, word after word, explanation after explanation, until one day you look in the mirror and you no longer recognize the man staring back at you. Because that man has been performing for so long, he forgot what was real. Real identity does not require an audience. It does not need applause. It does not shift depending on who is watching. A man who truly knows himself does not feel the need to explain himself. Not because he is cold, not because he does not care, but because he understands something most people never learn. The right people do not need an explanation, and the wrong people will never accept one anyway. Think about that for a moment. Sit with it. How many times have you explained yourself perfectly yet still felt misunderstood? How many times did you choose your words carefully, hoping this time it would land, hoping this time they would understand, and still walked away feeling unheard? That is because explanation was never the real issue. The real issue was that you felt the need to explain in the first place. The moment you feel that need, you begin to give away your power. And power, once given away, is not always easy to take back. But it can be taken back. That is what silence does. Silence reclaims. Silence says, I do not owe you my inner world. Not out of arrogance, not out of ego, but out of self-respect. Your thoughts, your emotions, your reasons, those are not things to be handed out on demand. They are yours, and they carry weight. She wanted the explanation. She pushed for it. Maybe she called it communication. Maybe she called it honesty. But underneath all of that was something deeper. It was a test. Not a cruel test. Not a manipulative one. An instinctive one. She needed to see if you could hold your ground. If pressure comes, do you stay steady or do you collapse? Do you remain rooted or do you scramble to prove yourself? And when you stayed silent, something shifted inside her. Something she may not even fully understand herself. She felt it, the weight of you, the steadiness of you. A man who does not panic under pressure is a man who cannot be easily moved. And a man who cannot be easily moved carries a quiet kind of magnetism that cannot be faked. Let us talk about attraction. Real attraction, not the surface version, not appearance, not style, not the obvious things people chase. The deeper kind, the kind that pulls someone towards you even when they feel confused by you. That kind of attraction is not built through constant agreement. It is not built through endless talking. It is built through contrast, the contrast between her emotions and your calm. The contrast between uncertainty and groundedness, the contrast between her need to understand and your comfort with not needing to explain everything. Mystery is often misunderstood. It is not about playing games. It is not about hiding things to create confusion. Mystery is simply what happens when a man does not feel the need to reveal everything all at once. A man who knows what he holds does not rush to prove it. He lets it unfold over time. Naturally, on his own terms. That is not manipulation. That is inner security. Self-respect is the foundation of everything. Without it, nothing lasts. Not confidence, not success, not attraction. Everything eventually collapses without self-respect, and self-respect is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not demand attention. It simply exists in how a man carries himself, in how he speaks, and just as importantly, in how he chooses not to speak. A man with self-respect does not chase approval. He does not beg to be understood. He does not reduce himself to be more acceptable to others. He does not shrink his truth to make someone else comfortable. He stands fully as he is, quietly, firmly, without apology. And that is not selfishness. That is self-respect. There is a difference. A selfish man takes. A self-respecting man maintains. He maintains his peace, his values, his space, his silence. He understands that his inner world is not public property. It is something that must be earned, not demanded, not forced, earned through patience, respect, and genuine intention. She may have questioned you, pushed you, needed answers, and when you stayed silent, she began to overthink. That is not something to fear. It reveals something important. It shows that you carry weight. A man with no depth is easily forgotten. But a man who holds his ground stays in someone's mind. When you explain everything, there is nothing left to discover. But when you remain grounded, you create space. Space for curiosity, space for thought, and that curiosity builds a deeper connection. Not a shallow one built on constant reassurance, but a real one built on presence. Now let us go deeper, because silence alone is not enough. Silence without purpose is not strength. It is avoidance. And avoidance is fear wearing a mask. A grounded man is silent because he is focused. Because he has direction, because there is something bigger in his life that holds his attention, something he is building, something he is becoming. There are two silent men. One is focused, the other is hiding. One is growing, the other is afraid. You have to be honest with yourself, truly honest. Are you silent because you are moving forward, or are you silent because you are running away? Self-awareness matters. Without it, silence becomes a wall. And walls do not attract. Walls push people away. The man we are talking about is not hiding. He is choosing silence intentionally. He understands that not every moment deserves his words. A man who speaks only when it matters carries weight. When he speaks, people listen, because they know his words are not empty. He does not speak to fill silence. He lets silence do its work. And silence does powerful work, work that cannot always be seen but can always be felt. Masculine grounding is the core of all of this. It is not aggression, it is not control, it is not dominance, it is stability. It is the ability to remain steady when everything around you shifts. When she becomes emotional, you remain calm. When she pushes, you remain firm. Not to overpower her, but to bring balance. A grounded man is not a chain. He is an anchor. He does not hold others down. He holds things together. The world often shows a loud version of masculinity. Aggressive, reactive, unstable. But real strength is quiet. It is steady. It does not need validation from anyone. It simply knows itself. And that strength begins the moment you stop explaining yourself to people who are not ready to understand. The moment you decide that your peace matters, that your inner world has value. Your silence is not punishment. It is a boundary. And boundaries are not walls, they are doors with locks. You control the key, you decide who enters, you decide what is shared, you decide when and how. Stop giving your power away. Stop explaining yourself just to calm someone else's thoughts. Stop trying to make everyone understand your path. Here is the uncomfortable truth, the one most men avoid. You have been over-explaining because you were afraid. Afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of losing her, afraid of conflict, even afraid of silence itself. Because when you are not at peace with yourself, silence feels uncomfortable. It feels like pressure. It feels like something you need to escape. But when a man becomes at peace with himself, silence becomes natural. He no longer needs to fill every moment with words. He has done the inner work. He understands himself. And because of that, he does not depend on others to validate him. He can hear criticism without breaking. He can sit in silence without panic. He can allow her to overthink without rushing to fix it. Because he understands something important. Her thoughts are not his responsibility. That is not coldness. That is maturity. A mature man loves without losing himself. He cares without becoming dependent. He gives without giving himself away. There are men who have lived the opposite way. Men who explained everything, who gave everything, who tried so hard to be understood yet still felt invisible. This is for them. Because no amount of explaining can force understanding. And no amount of talking can create connection where there is none. The moment you stop trying to prove yourself, something shifts inside you. You become calmer, clearer, stronger, more certain, more comfortable in your own skin. And that is when you become most attractive. Not when you are trying, but when you stop trying and simply become. A man who chooses himself, who focuses on growth, who builds something real, does not need to explain. His life speaks, his consistency speaks, his silence speaks. And when the moment is right, when pressure fades, real conversation can happen. Not forced, not rushed, but natural. That is not control. That is leadership. Quiet leadership that begins within and moves outward. It is built in small moments. The moment you choose peace over proving a point. The moment you stay calm instead of reacting. The moment you allow silence instead of filling it with noise. Slowly you build yourself. Piece by piece, choice by choice, silence by silence. Until one day you become someone real, someone grounded, someone who no longer needs to explain who he is, because he simply is. And when a man reaches that point, everything around him begins to shift. Not through force, but through presence. That man is rare, that man is powerful, and that man can be you. Starting now. The next time pressure comes, choose stillness. The next time she waits, let her wait. Not from ego, from confidence. She expected an explanation. You gave her something stronger. You showed her who you are without saying a word. And that message will stay with her. Let it stay. That is where it belongs. If this reached you, stay on this path. Keep growing. Keep becoming, because the most powerful thing a man can do is simply be who he is. Without apology, without explanation, without hesitation.